Magandang umaga po. Ako po si Rex, bumabati sa inyo from Sydney, Australia. At ako po ay masaya at it's a big privilege for me to speak to you and share His Word. Um, First, I just want to ask you to pray with me. So, shall we start this with prayer? Panginoon, salamat po sa araw na ito upang kami ay makapagbulay-bulay ng salita. Salamat po sa iyong kabutihan, sa iyong pagmamahal. Ikaw nawa po siyang maitaas, Panginoon, at ikaw po nawa siyang mapuri, Panginoon. At nawa, Panginoon, ay turuan mo kami ng iyong word, Panginoon, at nawa ay makuha kami sa lesson na yung umaga nito. Sa pangalan ni Jesus, Amen. Sa umaga pong ito, ako po ay gusto ko pong pag-usapan ng word na stress. Magsisimula po ako sa stress. Wala po akong specific text. Pero gusto ko po kunin yung Genesis chapter 6 to 7, which is the Noah story. I will not be focusing much on that text. But I want to use that story so that we can see how life can be stressful at times. So Noah, and I want to gauge those difficulties kung saan kinaharap ni Noah based on Maslow hierarchy of needs. First, self-actualization. Do you think Noah's self-fulfillment when he did the ark? Do you think it's easy for God to convince him to do the ark? Dun po sa movie na Evan Almighty, I don't know if you watched that, it's a big comedy. It took a lot of science before he finally understood what God wants him to do. Next one, self-esteem or assurance. So the order of God to build an ark is actually a tall and weird order or command. And bilang mo gumawa ka ng ark, it's actually like a mission impossible. And on those verses, we can see that God gave Noah an accurate measurement in full details of what the ark will be looking like. And doon po sa command ni God, God wants Noah to build an ark, and actually on top of the mountain, which is like out of place. And then relationships, number 3, asking people in agreement. First, maybe he asked his family to join him, or so believe mo, me as a father, I'll be asking my children, my wife, to join me in building an ark, which is very difficult. And also, next one, asking the people, which is the neighbor and friends, to agree and join him in building an ark. So I don't know how. I think it's gonna be difficult for me to say someone na, parang weird naman yung gagawin ko na bibili ako ng ark, wala namang storm. I remember when Kainta started, my father, si Papa, he actually invited the neighbors during his birthday just to start the church in Kainta. So that's how it started. I don't know if Kuya Ramon remember that, but that's how Kainta started. And then, kung mahirap yung invite mo yung family mo and the people in agreement, how much more the animals. So imagine Noah asking the animals to join him in the ark. Next one, safety. Do you think Noah has an experience to meron ba siyang experience na gumawa ng ark? I don't think so. He's actually inexperienced. And I think it's his first time to build an ark. So how sure he can be na safe yung kanyang pag-build ng ark? And then physiological needs, like where will he get the money to build the ark, food for all the animals na pupunta doon sa ark, and then dwelling places or shelter of these animals. So these are from the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Makikita natin kung gaano ka-difficult yung pinagdaanan ni Noah and how stressful is it. So life can be full of difficulties. So what are the causes of stress in adult life? Maybe divorce, death of loved ones, severe illness, serious accidents, um, getting into trouble with the law, like crimes, hectic pace of life, disasters, natural and man-made, pressure at work and school, worries about employment and financial security, worries about pleasing other people. And here in Australia, no tissue. Opo, dito po sa Australia, problema nila ang tissue paper. It's good that us Filipinos, we don't worry about tissue paper dahil meron tayong tabo. Pero dito po sa Australia, problema nila ang tissue. One time we went to Costco and there was like a long queue of people wanting to go inside Costco just to buy the tissue. And once the gate has been opened, everyone was like running. Talagang tumatakbo sila papunta dun sa tissue paper. That's how they look at the tissue paper as very important, this COVID-19 situation. So, because I'm also a nurse, so I also want to talk to you about anatomy of stress. Konti lang po. Anatomy of stress. So, in the first seconds of stress, we have this we call fight or flight mode. And then the senses will send to the amygdala, and then also it will send to hypothalamus, and then to the autonomic nervous system, and then to the adrenal glands, wherein it's going to secrete adrenaline. And then once that's secreted, the classic feeling of stress will show up, wherein increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, and then fast breathing. And then it will actually release cortisol. So what's the function of cortisol? Cortisol is actually, the use of cortisol is to protect the brain from damaging because of the trauma. But long-term exposure of cortisol is actually also dangerous. So it will actually lead to obesity, depression, heart disease, suppression of the immune system, increased susceptibility to colds, pag lagi kong sinisipon, sleep issues, gut issues, fertility issues, nahihirapan mga anak, o mabuntis, memory problems, confusion, cancer, and death. So due to the fact that Noah has survived building the ark, I believe that Noah might have applied the lessons in this tall mission of building the ark. So I'm actually going to speak to you about some points how we could actually develop, or how we can face stressful situations. First, actually my points is just 10 points from the word don't stress, DONTSTRESS. So first one is develop helpful habits. Exercise actually lifts up moods and improves body's response to stress. So exercise po, ako po ay isang nurse, but though minsan seldom dahil minsan pagod na ako pagdating sa bahay, but I still try to run. Bumili kami ng treadmill just to do an exercise. Eat nutritious food, avoid skipping meals, get enough rest. Good health is a treasure which no money can buy. So kung mayaman ka nga pero may sakit ka naman, what's the use? So if meron kayong katabi, tell your seatmates, take care of your health, don't stress. That's my point number one. Take care of your health, don't stress. And that's actually also says in 1 Timothy chapter 4 verse 8, physical health is beneficial. So yeah, health is important. Number two, observe a balanced lifestyle. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4 verse 6, it says, better is a handful of rest than handfuls of hard work and chasing after the wind. So meaning, yung mga workaholic, so trabaho ka ng trabaho, pero hindi mo naman na-enjoy yung benefit ng iyong pinagpaguran. So they have a lot of time working, but then they'll waste also all of their energy Kaya pagdating na sa time ng pag-enjoy ng kanilang pinagpaguran, wala na silang energy. So wala din saysay. So make time to relax. They say that actually phones is also using your phones or being with your phones is also stressful. That's why dun po sa hospital we have this program wherein in 15 days they can't use their phone. So kinukuha namin yung phone at tinatago. And these people only realize na kung ano yung kagandahan ng walang phone. And once they got their phone, parang nag-aano sila na nagugulat sila na it actually na-improve yung kanilang health because of having a phone. People who work 7 days will actually also soon realize what they have all missed. They say that you work hard so you can enjoy at the end. But what if you go sick? So, paano nga kung nag-work ka ng work, marami kang pera after several years, pero paano kung bigla ka nagkasakit? So again, tell your seatmates, don't work too much, don't stress. That's number 2. And then what's the next letter? So don't stress. Letter N. Note what stresses you. In Proverbs chapter 17, verse 27, it says, "A discerning man will remain calm." Negative emotions can actually cloud clear thinking. So try to stay calm. So mga nag-away, pag emotional ka na, minsan marami ka na nasasabi. So it's important that we have to control our emotion and for us to stay calm. Identify what stresses you and note your response. So when you feel stress, what were your thoughts? Ano yung feeling mo? Ano yung behavior mo? So by being aware of your responses, you will be able to deal with stress effectively. And then think of ways to eliminate stressful things from your life. Ano ba yung mga nakaka-stress sa'yo? If it's unrealistically parang hindi mo siya kayang tanggalin, like for example, if your part is the one stressing you, look for ways to reduce their impact. Perhaps by managing the task or your time effectively. Try to see things in a different light. What stresses you may not stress someone else. So, tignan mo sa ibang viewpoint. Kung baga sa bundok, maraming view siya. So, try to look that in a different viewpoint. So, I have 3 suggestions when it comes to viewpoint. First, do not be quick to assume bad motives. Kumbaga, pag may nagawa ang isang tao sa inyo ng mali, don't think agad na, baka sinadya niya to, o for example, may nawala sa inyong bahay, baka ninakaw sa inyo. So do not be quick to assume bad motives. Second, see the positive side of the situation. So, for example, you are in a long queue, ano bang pwede niyong gawin while you're in a long queue? Nasa mahaba kayong pila. Maybe you can read or maybe you can share the word of God to the people na kasama niyo sa pila. Keep the big picture in mind. Will this big issue just be today, or is also going to be an issue tomorrow or next week? So, again, if you have seatmates, tell your seatmate, be prepared, don't stress. Number 4, letter T. Try to be orderly. In 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 40, it says, "Let all things take place decently and by arrangement." So try to maintain order in your life because God is a God of order. Disorderliness and stress will actually leads to procrastination. So as Filipinos, marami yung tinatawag natin manyana habit. So 3 suggestions that I can give to you when it comes to procrastination. First, you have to plan ahead. Second, make a practical schedule of your time frames and stick to it or act on it. Because if we don't act, we sometimes miss an opportunity. And if we miss that opportunity, then we just have to let it pass. So again, if you have missed an opportunity, just don't dwell on them. Just, it's a lesson learned. Move on, kumbaga. So again, if you have your seatmate with you, tell your seatmate, Set things out early so you don't stress. Number 5, letter S. So we go to the word stress. Set reasonable standards in James chapter 3 verse 17. The wisdom from above is reasonable. So, meaning, do not be perfectionists. Avoid having high standards. Avoid trying to please other people because because you are not born to please other people. It's just God who you need to please. Know both your limitation and those of others. Ano ba yung limitation mo? Ano ba yung limitation ng mga kasama mo? Baka you keep on pushing them but they are already on their limits. Also, maganda po keep a sense of humor. Even when something goes wrong, if you have humor, it actually relieves tension. It brightens up your mood. My wife is actually a beautiful and smart person, but what I love with my wife, paano ako na in love sa wife ko is actually because of her cheerful attitude. I actually first met her in the hospital wherein nag-joke kagad siya sa akin. Though I didn't laugh immediately dahil medyo pakipot pa. But then I find my wife a very cheerful person. And then also my mom, as far as I could remember, the times wherein we actually laugh together are those times where something goes wrong. Yung mga time na kumbaga may nangyaring masama, doon kami minsan natatawa na aking nanay. So again, if you have your seatmates, you can't please everybody. Don't stress. Set reasonable standards. Next letter. Letter. Oh, by the way, this is the wisdom from above is reasonable. James 3:17. Next letter is T. Try to live one day at a time. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 34, it says, "Never be anxious about the next day, for the next day will have its own anxieties." Meaning, daily anxieties are part of life, but do not increase today's anxieties by adding tomorrow's to them. So try to live one day at a time. Stress can cause anxiety. So ano ba pwede natin gawin? First, recognize that the problems are inevitable. So talagang ang problema ay hindi natin maiwasan. Pero pag ginawa natin problema ang isang problema, it just increases our stress. Kaya yung mga bagay na kung saan, sabi nga nila, kung ginawa mo na ang lahat at wala ka lang magawa, wala ka lang dapat gawin. So if you have done everything and there's nothing for you to do, just let it pass. Second, understand that the things that we fear don't necessarily happen. So yung mga minsan kinatatakutan natin, hindi naman talaga mangyayari. So yeah. Minsan na-stress tayo sa mga bagay na hindi naman pala mangyayari. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tell your seatmates, don't worry about tomorrow, so don't stress. Next letter. Letter R. Reach out for support. In Proverbs chapter 12 verse 25, it says, "Anxiety in man's heart weighs it down, but a good word cheers it up." Meaning, kind, compassionate words from others can lift your spirits. So try to talk things with other people or understanding people. Sometimes people can actually help you see things differently or give you another solution which you overlooked. So unburdening yourself can also make you feel better. Take it out and express it. So yung mga people po, yung mga tao po na hindi marunong ma-express, they usually end up harming themselves. Yung mga tao nagko-commit suicide. And it's sad. Ask for people to help you delegate the task and share the workload. When I first started working as a nurse in charge sa hospital, I seldom delegate and I end up tired that day pag hindi ako nagde-delegate. So you have to delegate if you needed to. Third, if a workmate, kung mayroong tao na nag-stress sa'yo, look for ways to improve the situation. For example, you can actually kindly, tactfully tell the person how or she makes you feel. Um, in Proverbs chapter 17, verse 27, it says, "A man of knowledge restrains his word, but a man of understanding maintains a calm spirit." So, if such measure falls, you can actually reduce the time you spend with the person. Kung hindi naayos, dahil kahit kinausap mo na siya, hindi pa rin naayos, just try to avoid that person. Here in Australia, we have this we call sharing my reality. So as Filipinos, I think mahirap sa atin mag-confront ng tao. But here in Australia, they have this way of sharing confrontational situations, like, can I share my reality with you? So my reality is this one, and I feel angry and I feel unworthy. So this is my reality and not yours. This is like also confrontation, but in a way, this model promotes connection rather than disconnection. It teaches both person, the offender, and the defender a lesson to contain themselves in relation to the reality shared. So, minsan, dahil takot tayo mag-confront ng tao, we just end up hindi tayo umiimik sa isa't isa. Parang hindi mo napapansinin, which is actually bad. Next one, letter E, establish your purpose. In Romans chapter 8, verse 28, it says, "And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose for them." Meaning, in setting our purpose, it should be aligned with God's purpose. By the way, it's Romans 8:28. Yeah, it should be aligned with God's purpose and not just our own selfish purpose. Many people tend to do a lot of things without purpose, and they end up confused and tired. So when we set our purpose in line with His purpose, there is no room to get upset because we know that things is actually not our purpose, but it's God. And if things are aligned to His purpose, all things will work together for good, as also the verse says. When I went here as a student, I also have this bachelor degree of theology, and the church, the senior pastor and the elder actually asked me if I wanted to be a pastor. Gusto ko magpastor doon sa church. And somehow, kumbaga yung question is, if I'll be a pastor of this church, I can actually get my residency or my permanent residency with the church. But then I felt like I'm more benefiting from the church rather than the church benefiting from me. So parang I take it na parang I would rather serve the church than the church serving my purpose. So my suggestion to you, you want God to bless you? Be a giver rather than a receiver. Then you will have a purpose. So again, tell your seatmates, be a giver rather than a receiver. Have a purpose. Next one. Letter S, set priorities. In Philippians chapter 1, verse 10, make sure of the more important things. So, carefully consider your priorities and your purpose. List the tasks in order of importance. Ano ba yung mga important sa'yo? And then this will help you focus on the more important jobs, and you can actually put off yung mga hindi importante, and you can delegate them or even eliminate them. For a week, try to keep track of how you can use your time, and you can control of your time of yourself, kung ano ba yung kailangan mong pagtuunan ng pansin. And by this way, you will actually you'll feel less pressure. And then schedule some downtime. Even some short breaks can actually reinvigorate you and reduce your stress. And then last, letter S, seek spiritual needs first. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 3, happy are those conscious of their spiritual need. As human, we need food, we need clothing, we need shelter, but we also have spiritual need. So to be happy, we must be conscious of that need and attend to it. So how do we feed our spiritual needs? First, prayer. In First Peter chapter 5, verse 7, it says, "Show all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you." Yeah, prayer can be a big help. and God is inviting us to throw all our cares to Him. Prayer and devotion can result in a deeper inner peace. Also in Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 and 7. And then read spiritual uplifting things like the Bible. The principle of the Bible is actually written to satisfy our spiritual need, and it can also foster practical wisdom and thinking ability in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 21. So those are the things that we can actually learn how to cope up with stress. In this present situation, because of the COVID, are you stressed? So instead of being stressed, why not read His Word and put into your heart His promises? Psalms chapter 91 is actually a good read of His promises in the midst of COVID. So what is the difference between COVID and Jesus? I saw this diagram and I'll show it to you. Ano ba yung difference ng COVID and Jesus? So, COVID-19, it damages, but Jesus, it heals. COVID-19 must be contained, but Jesus must be shared. COVID-19 creates fear, but Jesus brings courage. COVID-19 makes us weak, but Jesus gives us strength. COVID-19 separates us, but Jesus binds us. COVID-19 creates chaos, but Jesus gives us peace. COVID-19 is temporary, but Jesus is eternal. COVID-19 leads to death, but Jesus leads to life. So yeah, so who do we more focus on? Is it COVID or Jesus? So in this time of COVID-19, they say it's okay to be concerned, but we shouldn't be. We should don't be panicking. Huwag tayo mag-panic. It's okay to take precautions, but don't be paralyzed with fear. As it says on Psalms chapter 56 verse 3, when I'm afraid, I will put my trust in you, according to David. When I'm afraid, I'll put my trust in you. Fear and faith cannot coexist. When fear takes over, our faith or our trust we should put our trust in Him. And because if I put my trust in God, then I shall not be afraid. That means when I'm feeling fear, then I should not trust in God anymore. So, pag hindi natin tinatrust, pag meron tayong takot, ibig sabihin hindi na tayo nagtatrust kay God. So, going back to Noah, do you know how many species of animal does the earth have? Especially the land animals. There's actually 6.6 million species of land animals. And the question is, how many animals can fit in the ark? Ilang animals ba makaka-fit dun sa ark? 6.6 million, will all that be, lahat ba yun magkakasya dun sa ark? Dun po sa verses, we can see that the word earth has been mentioned several times. Earth. And in Hebrews, it says kol eretz. Kol means all, and eretz, earth, land, ground, or country. So there's actually a study. The question is, yung flood ba na yun, really it's actually, does it mean that talagang na-flood ba yung whole earth? But because it says here land, ground, earth, or country, someone is saying that maybe the translator must have misinterpreted it, na kung saan hindi naman yung buong earth, but it's just land. So they're saying that it's just a local area and not the whole earth. The Noah's Ark, or the flood, actually happened before the Tower of Babel. And during that time, people are not scattered yet. So kumbaga, konti ba lang po yung tao. So God does not need to flood the whole earth. So if it is only local, the question is why God did not just send Noah for a long walk? Kumbaga, Sinabi na kay Noah na, oh, magpa-flood dito, punta ka doon sa lugar na to dahil walang flood doon. Because the story of Noah is actually a story of faith. Like the march in Jericho, God can simply, kaya niya sirain kaagad yung walls na doon sa Jericho, but God told them to march sa paligid ng Jericho. So it's actually teaching us about faith. It's actually teaching us to have faith and believe on His promises. So this is actually what what God wants us to learn from Noah's story. At the start of this year, we actually started to look for a house for investment, and then we found a house January, and then we made an offer, and then we agreed on that price. And then after a week, we found out that seller actually offered it to another buyer, and they agreed on that price as well. So, and that seller actually chose the offer of that other person. So at first we were like frustrated, but then I know that it's not for us because God has a purpose. So on the next month, March, we actually found another house which is much more better than the first house dahil investment nga eh. Kumbaga, we can gain more on this second house than the first one. And then on the first week of March, we put all our money, we put everything, and then we got the house on the first week of March. And then on March 14, a sad story reached me na yung father ko po ay nagkasakit. And March 15, I'm actually gonna preach in the church. At that time, I was like concerned. I'm concerned, but I trust God, and I know that in the midst of uncertainty, God is still in control. And then on the next day, Sunday, after I preached, on that same day, I just heard that my father was taken away from us. So I don't know I don't know what to say, but I don't know what will I ask from God. But I know that God has a purpose. Hindi man kami nakauwi. I know sometimes bad things happen to us and we tend to question God. But we know that God is always in control and He knows what's best. God has a purpose. As Christians, this is the right time for us to proclaim. Ito po yung tamang oras kung saan tayo makapag-share ng Word of God. This is the right occasion for us to rise ourselves. Kung saan yung mga tao ay natatakot, let us point them where our source of peace and joy is coming from. So, again, this is my message for you. Don't stress, develop health habits, observe balanced lifestyle. Note what stresses you. Note what stresses you. Try to be orderly, set reasonable standards. Try to be orderly. Try to live one day at a time. Reach out for support. Establish your purpose. Set priorities. Seek spiritual needs first, and then instead of stress, we should be praying, holding to His promises, and proclaim His word. Ito po yung salita po ng Diyos. Salamat po sa inyong oras sa pakikinig. Nawa ay pagpalain kayo ng ating Panginoon. Please stand firm and just wait for His return. God bless you.